Happy Monday, everybody. How are you all doing out there in Facebook world or wherever you're listening to this? I'm Gloria Coppola, and I'm a story development coach and the owner of Powerful Potential and Purpose Publishing. And today I have a very special guest. She's a brand new solo author who's releasing her book. Let's put it up, Karin. She's releasing her book, Achieving Peace, Purpose, and Prosperity, very soon. Karin has actually got a master's in marriage and family counseling, and she does also something called EMDR, which she'll talk a little bit about later. But mainly, she's talking about shift happening because we are in a time in this world where we need a frequency change. So, Karin, thank you for coming on this morning so that we can bring your work to the world and educate people.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for having me and for helping me through this birthing process, because I have a child, and this is my non-human child right here.
It's true. I always equate working with the authors about like a pregnancy cycle. It's like, you find out you're pregnant or something good is coming into your life, let's say, and you get all excited. Yay, yay, yay. And then, you got those first 3 months of pregnancy and you're still yay, 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 yay. And you're looking at clothes and designing the bedrooms and all. And then you go, whoa, something happens one morning. You start getting a little nauseous and afraid. Same thing happens to writers, right? And then there's that exciting stage in the middle, and then there's the end stage where you're like, oh, can we just get this over with? And then you have to push that baby out. And that sometimes can be the hard part for Karin, for authors. And then when you hold that book, how did it feel to get your proof book and actually see it and hold it just like a baby?
It was pretty amazing. It's like, oh my gosh, this is how it looks on paper with the real picture, and it's three-dimensional and tangible. It's amazing.
It is amazing. Well, I'm excited for you and I'm proud of you, Karin. When we met, like 2 years ago at a speakers event and we sat next to each other, who knew that we would be here today shifting the world together?
That's right.
So one of your chapters is fascinating because I'm all about frequency and energy. I love all that stuff. And you have a whole chapter on everything is vibration. And in this day and age, I think more than ever, this topic is extremely important because over the last couple of years, we all know what's been happening in our world, not just here in the United States, in the world. And there's a lot of stress happening and people getting anxious and panic attacks and muscle aches and pains. And how do you equate what you're teaching in here with what's happening in the present day world?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So we know it's a scientific fact that everything is connected. So we are like ripples in a lake when you throw a pebble out there. It doesn't matter how big or how small that little rock is, it's going to create ripple effects. And that is exactly what we do. We are like little radio frequencies. We send signals out into the world that are emitted, and we receive signals in the world, what's going on around us. And the more that we get to the place, which is what a big part of this book is about, where we become in charge of what we're sending out and what signals we want to have in our circle, the more powerful we become and the more we gain peace.
That is so true, because my circle has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller over the last 2 years with all the conflict out there and all the stress out there. And yet I'm very peaceful. The people that I'm working with, like you, or that have come in my life in some capacity, it's a totally different frequency. And I realized I removed myself from a frequency that I didn't want to be in because it was stressing me out.
Absolutely. And this has become more pronounced now, but this has always happened. You might have been in a work situation where we get so accustomed to a certain way of being and a certain level of stress that's just our norm. We just think that's just how it is.
Yeah,
it could
exactly.
be a relationship. Yeah, it could be intimate relationship, friend relationship, whatever. And we just think that that's just how it is. I just need to go. And this is where this another big part of my book is people run to the doctor. Oh, I feel I can't sleep at night. My brain keeps running and all these different things. And the doctor will be happy to write you a prescription of some sort of anti-anxiety or antidepressant. Instead of they're not trained to look at or ask, what is going on in your life now and in the past that is still popping up and causing problems in your life?
And I know people personally, have talked to people like that, and they just kind of throw their hands up and say, "Hey, you don't know my life. It's stressful." And you're exactly right. They're on multiple medications. It is not solving their problem. And over time, a lot of them mentally are getting even more stressed. And then they get more medication, and then they can't even function. They've lost their vitality, their joy for life, and financially, they're like devastated.
Yeah. Yeah, because nobody's ever getting to the root cause. And what I love to do is to get to the root cause and empower people by releasing them of the things, the situations, the events that are mentally keeping them stuck where they are. And that what we tend to do, and this is one of my other terms that I've or things that I've termed, is that most people, they're just emotionally constipated. Because we are not taught to go into the emotion and allow it to just come up. Let's just let it bubble up and let it come out, not in an abusive way, but, if you have to cry, you have to cry, for goodness sakes. There's nothing wrong with tears. It's not a sign. Do not confuse tears with a sign of weakness.
Exactly.
On the contrary, you're just releasing something out that you don't need to hold in anymore. And we learn how to stuff all of these things with food and alcohol and sex and porn and all kinds of things that people are doing, spending money, doing a million different things that just makes everything worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I think back to the days when I used to do, body work and energy work and had my holistic center, and I had clients, they want to heal, right? They want the miracle healing. And I did something called SomatoEmotional Release. And back then, I was on a multidisciplinary panel for fibromyalgia with doctors, nutritionists, psychologists, et cetera. We did research, and then we spoke at universities and hospitals. And so I learned a lot about what you're talking about what's in those tissues too. And like they say, the issues are in the tissues. So, some of the clients that would come, when that emotion came up, and you probably see this in your work doing the EMDR, some of them are kind of happy. It's releasing, even though they could be upset and crying, but others want to shove it down and stuff it more and actually can run away from treatments because they don't want to face it. So, how does your work help those people that just keep hiding?
Well, here's the thing. I can't make people do something they're not willing to do. That's beyond me. So when people, they come to me, if they're ready to do the work and do the releasing, let me tell you what, we can do the releasing. And that's the beautiful thing that I love about, you mentioned EMDR in the beginning, that stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a mouthful, but it is a totally different way of going about working through things in a way. It's almost like going in the back door. We're just skipping all those emotional defenses that we have, that we put up, and allow it to release, not just in a cognitive way, logically, because the nervous system is still wired so that people have these knee-jerk responses. They're still anxious, this, that, and the other, when they know, oh, well, it came from this, that, and the other. But what EMDR does is put everything back in alignment and get the nervous system on the same page as where our head knows that we are. This thing happened in the past and we're here now. And the nervous system finally gets to that place where it's like, that's why the first word in the title of my book is peace, because that's what people get when we have processed through something, an event. It's like, peace, and literally an emotional weight coming off of people, because it's not just a physical thing. It's a cognitive, physical, emotional release of things that are keeping you stuck.
Yeah. You know, you brought up something too that I want to touch upon because people are also conditioned at an early stage in life to react a certain way. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday who even said to me, yeah, these reactions I have that sometimes are overly dramatic were a learned pattern behavior from who she was brought up with. And it's like, we got to kind of slap ourselves at times and say, whoa, why am I doing this? Where did I learn it? And how can I clear it? And you talk about that in your book too, about clearing these traumas, that even when they're patterns like that, and how when we do that, we gain clarity.
Absolutely. It's so beautiful to see because most of how we are, and the other thing that I talk about is that so much of our behaviors and our reactions are exactly what you're talking about. They are based on what we saw, learned patterns before we had an opportunity to decide for ourselves what works for me, because our little brains, when we're 0 to 6 years old, are little sponges, so we're just soaking up everything that's in our environment, whether it's spoken and unspoken. We're feeling it all back to the frequencies, and we're feeling it, and that's then what's then reinforced the next 7 years, and then the next, and by the time we're in our early 30s, we're just on autopilot
Mm.
until we decide, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's something I can do, maybe this doesn't work for me anymore. So yes, when we clear this out, it's like we get to the place where finally we can say, whoa, I've been following this thing blindfolded and just doing what I was taught instead of deciding for myself what works for me now, here, in this
Yeah.
time.
You know, you brought up the timeline, and in your book, you have a timeline. You went through tragedy of losing your dad when you were 5. At 6, there was upheaval when mom decided we're going to Denmark, to a new country, new language, new people, leaving your toys and your friends behind. And you share in the book too how some of the patterns of even your mother affected you in your own communication in life.
Absolutely. And this is the other piece that I bring up is intergenerational trauma. And another thing is that trauma is not necessarily, people, when they hear trauma, they think about big accident or
Right.
going to war, that type of thing, which that is obviously a trauma. But we all have experienced little t traumas, as we talk about in EMDR. And these are these kinds of, maybe you had an argument with a good friend, or you were bullied, or like this here, being uprooted from everything you know, move to another country and have to learn everything all
Well, and the
over.
communication process
Yeah,
in life had to really affect you to even finding your purpose in life, right? Because you share in the book a little bit about the communication issues with your mom. You also have to learn a new language and make new friends. So there's a communication thing there. You share about how it affected you later on in life, even in your own marriage. And all of this, you know, communication's a frequency, it's a vibration, you know, and then you find your purpose and look at the work you're doing to help people. I think that's really cool.
yeah. Talk about coming full circle, and that intergenerational trauma. Yeah, because what I got to see, and I shared this in the book, how my mother, the intergenerational was between my mother and her mother, and then myself. So this little triangle. I have a teeny tiny little family, so that was about it. And the triangle of how these interactions were, and the difference between how my grandmother, maternal grandmother, treated my mother's side of the family, myself and her, versus how she treated her sons, meaning my
Mm.
mother's brothers side of the family. And just how the fear was so obvious, how my mother still feared her mother, even though
Mhm.
she was in her 80s, and I felt the fear, and that not being able to speak up for yourself. And so it took me a long time to really know. I know I'm a therapist, but it took me a long time to really learn how to speak up for myself. um yeah, and so
Well,
that's
you know, and
huge.
the fact that you are a therapist, you
Yeah.
know, you've lived it. So you have more empathy towards people that are going through a lot of this stuff because you're very vulnerable and authentic in the book. You share a lot of these different things that happen not only as a child, as a teenager, but as an adult, even
Yep.
going through this transition. And then you came real and raw even later on about the financial situation because you talk about all types of addictions, food, relationships, like you said, money, all of this. And yet here you are today teaching people how to achieve peace, purpose, and prosperity. And prosperity is not just money, it comes in all of this.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, especially, I see too a lot of the reactions people are having on what's going on in the world are some of those upbringing responses because a lot of our families, have been either through World War One and Two or Vietnam War or Afghanistan War. So there was that trauma that hit those people that served that got brought home. There was fear of survival, lack for food, for money, all of this. And you can see it resurfacing in the way people are reacting right now and how it's affecting their lives.
Right. And talk about something that was funny in the very beginning last year in March when all of a sudden, what disappeared off of the shelves was toilet paper, What the heck? What is this, a hurricane we're preparing for?
Yeah, it was interesting, because toilet paper back in the days of World War One and Two, even for years in those European countries, as you probably know, living there, toilet paper was a commodity.
Right.
Good
Right.
toilet paper was really valuable. So I kept thinking too, why is everybody running for toilet paper?
Uh,
So
so
what message did you plan on giving the world when you wrote this book?
I wanted people to know that you are so much more powerful than what we've been taught to believe, that we have the power to overcome so much in our life, not just by gritting our teeth and white knuckling through it. No, but we can actually let go of that. We can actually have peace. We can get grounded. We can find our purpose, which is another big part of prosperity. Emotional prosperity is finding our purpose. And to empower people because we feel so disempowered. We've been giving so many disempowered messages. And when we can tap into that, they're very simple. It's much simpler than what we've been taught and what we have
I
been
agree.
told.
I
Yes,
agree. We have
yes,
been really, in a way, programmed to struggle,
yes,
that things are hard. And I've seen it with family, friends, colleagues, and myself at different times, why,
yeah,
why are we making things so hard? I remember, I remember even, I used to, whether I was teaching my children or teaching my massage therapists and stuff, I would watch, like, why are they making it so hard? I used to say that in my
yeah,
head,
yeah,
and try to find different ways of showing them ease and grace.
yeah.
And it's not to say, like people say, oh, well, Gloria, you've not been through anything. Yes, I have. Just like you and a whole lot of people out in that world. And the people that know my journey, they look at me and go, well, how could you be so peaceful?
Exactly. Because you took charge and you decided to not become a victim.
No.
Yeah, yeah. So when you choose to not buy into the victim role, then it's very simple. It does take persistence. You do have to practice.
I'm going
Like,
to interrupt you for 1 second
yeah,
because I think what you're talking about is crucial right now. Because, like you, I've done life coaching as well for clients. And I remember talking to a lot of them about the victim, and they don't know they're a victim. What are the signs that they can start looking at to realize that they have a victim mentality? How can you help them with that?
oh, that's a good question. If you feel as though things in life is being done to you, where you feel as though you don't have any choices, you feel like you're depending on other people, a lot of different things. You're job, your different things. Yes, of course, we need to have an income, but there are many ways of having an income.
And there's a lot of blame out
Yes,
towards others,
yes,
and there's a lot of shame.
absolutely, absolutely. And it feels very stressful when you feel
Mhm.
as when you are overreacting, when you, that's also a sign that we're not really just reacting to this situation right here. When you get angry a lot, when you feel anxious a lot, all these different things, all of these are also emotional and physiological signs that you are in victim mode.
Mhm. Well, Karen, thank you for those tips. Thank you for sharing your journey. Hold that book up again, your proof, so people can see it. Karen's book will be released real soon, so be sure to watch all the posts that we're putting out there on social media. Karen, if they want to, because we don't have an Amazon link yet, if they want to get in touch with you, what is your website?
My website is www.insightswellnesscenter.net.
Okay, so I'm going to put it up down here, and you let me know if I did this correctly.
It's a new website, so that's why I had to think for a minute.
Okay, is that correct?
Uh, insightswellnesscenter.net. Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So if they want to reach out to you to find out how to get your book or schedule coaching with you or something, that's where they go, right?
Yeah, or you can reach me because I don't know if it's up and running fully yet.
Okay, what's your
Otherwise,
email?
email is Karin W at insightscounselingcenter.com.
W at, okay,
Yeah,
Insights Counseling is one L or two?
one L
I always mix that up. CounselingCenter.com.
.com.
So I'm going to put that up and you let me know if that is correct.
Yep, that is
Okay.
correct.
So anybody that wants to find out more about the work that Karin's doing because you're ready to go from victim to victor, no more surviving, let's start thriving. Get in touch with Karin. Visit her, at her new website soon. There's her email if you want to reach out to her, and stay tuned for the release of the book very soon. Karin, thank you for being here today and bringing your purpose to the world.
Thank you, Gloria, so much.
Bye bye now.